The streetlights blurred like ghosts behind me, and the night kept swallowing my reflection in every passing window. I ran, not with my legs, but with my thoughts, my fear, my memory of what I once felt and couldn't bear to feel again. The city roared, but inside me was a silence so loud it trembled the air. Every mile, every breath, every face I forgot was just another way to not stop. What was I so afraid of meeting in this stillness? The answer followed me like a shadow. I refused to turn toward, and somewhere beneath the sound of tires and trains and rain, a softer voice waited. The kind that didn't chase, the kind that simply stayed. Morning arrived like an apology. The sky didn't know how to say. I drove until the radio turned to static and the road became a whisper beneath the tires. The air smelled of salt now, the first trace of something clean. For the first time in years, there was no city skyline in the rearview mirror, only the soft curve of clouds over an endless sea. I didn't know if I'd reached a destination or simply run out of places to hide, but something in me began to loosen, like a knot untying without permission. The world didn't demand I move anymore. It just waited, and in that stillness, I began to hear the quiet that had been chasing me all along. The town appeared without warning. A cluster of cottages stitched between the cliffs and the water. It was small enough that silence felt natural there. I parked by an empty pier, the wooden boards creaking underfoot, and for the first time I didn't move. The sea stretched out, vast and indifferent, but it didn't feel cruel. It felt honest. Maybe that's what frightened me most. The truth wasn't loud, it was gentle. And gentleness had always been harder to face than pain. I found a small cottage for rent at the edge of the town, close enough to hear the ocean breathing through the walls at night. The landlord said it used to belong to a painter. Inside, the air smelled faintly of turpentine and old rain. I left my bag by the door and sat on the floor, watching sunlight spill through a cracked window. It painted soft gold across the wooden boards, and something inside me wanted to believe that maybe peace wasn't a destination after all. Maybe it was what's left when you finally stop running. That night, sleep came softly, without the sharp edges of dreams that used to wake me. I could hear the tide moving beyond the window, its rhythm like a slow heartbeat that wasn't mine, but somehow kept me alive. I thought about how long I'd been running, from pain, from love, from stillness, and how every escape had only led me closer to this quiet. I didn't know yet what waited for me in this town, or who, but for the first time I wasn't afraid of the silence. I wanted to know what it had been trying to tell me all this time. The morning smelled of rain and sea salt. I walked through the narrow town streets, still unsure why I'd stayed. Then I saw her, standing by an easel on the pier, painting the horizon, as though she'd known its shape all her life. She didn't notice me at first. Or maybe she did and just didn't need to react. Something in her stillness felt like recognition. Not of who I was, but of everything I'd tried to hide. The brush in her hand moved with a patience I didn't understand. I stood there longer than I meant to, feeling the strange pull of peace I hadn't earned. She finally looked up. There was no surprise in her gaze, only awareness, as if she'd been waiting for me to notice her. "You hear it too, don't you?" she asked, her voice low, carried by the wind. I didn't know what she meant, but I nodded anyway. Maybe it was the sound of waves, or maybe the silence between them. She smiled faintly, the kind that feels like truth spoken without words. And then she turned back to her canvas, painting not what she saw, but what the moment felt like. We met again the next morning, or maybe she was always there and I just returned. She offered me coffee from a small thermos and didn't ask questions. Instead, we watched the tide together, our reflections trembling in the wet sand. Her calm didn't come from ignorance. It came from acceptance, the kind that had once felt impossible to me. Every word she spoke landed like a stone sinking softly into water, No splash, no echo, only truth. She showed me her paintings that afternoon. Each one looked less like the world and more like how the world feels before you try to name it. I asked her how she captured calm so vividly, and she laughed softly, saying, "I don't paint calm. I let it paint me." Something in that stayed with me, echoing in the quiet between heartbeats. I realized peace wasn't the absence of noise. It was the courage to listen when everything else wanted to run. That evening, she walked me back to the cottage. We didn't speak much. The ocean glowed dark under the moon, and our footsteps matched its rhythm. "Just before we parted," she said, "sometimes we don't find peace. We remember it." I wanted to ask how, but the words caught in my throat. She smiled, not to comfort, but to remind me that I already knew the answer. And when she turned away, I felt something shift inside me. Not healing, not yet, but the quiet ache of becoming ready. Days blurred into gentle rhythm. Coffee at dawn, painting at noon, silence at dusk. Yet the calm began to uncover what noise once buried. I found myself remembering things I'd promised to forget. Words said in anger, moments where I turned away instead of stay. Ilara never asked about them, but she felt them. I could see it in how her gaze softened when mine trembled. Stillness has a way of revealing what motion hides. I wondered if peace was supposed to hurt before it healed. One afternoon, she asked me what I ran from. I told her I didn't remember. She smiled sadly and said, "You do. You just stopped naming it." Her voice didn't accuse, it understood. I looked away, out toward the horizon where clouds gathered over the sea. The sky was heavy, yet beautiful, a storm that refused to break. Maybe healing wasn't about escaping the rain, but standing still long enough to feel. That night I dreamed of the city again, but it was quieter this time. The streets were empty, the noise gone. Only echoes of my own footsteps followed me. When I woke, the sound of waves replaced the dream, and Ilara was sitting by the window, painting. "You look like someone who's starting to listen," she said softly. Maybe she was right. The heart has its own voice. It just waits for you to stop talking over it. Later that day, I asked her if peace ever scared her. She laughed lightly, saying, "All the time. That's how I know it's real." I didn't understand then, but something about her honesty felt like mercy. I'd spent years treating calm like a finish line, but maybe it was just another way of beginning again. Her words stayed with me, echoing in the rhythm of the waves. For the first time, I didn't want to run. I wanted to learn how to stay. That evening, I stood by the water alone. The tide came and went, steady as breath. I remembered every version of myself that had once stood in this same silence. Angry, afraid, pretending. And now, for the first time, I didn't feel the need to be anyone at all. Behind me, I heard her voice, soft, certain. "You've stopped running." I turned, and her smile was small but endless. Maybe that's what peace truly is. Not a place you find, but a person you become. The days grew heavier without warning. I'd thought calm meant safety, but stillness can hold more than peace. It can hold memory. The sea turned darker, not with storm, but with reflection. I started seeing flashes of who I used to be. Angry words thrown into silence, people I'd left mid-sentence, promises I never meant to keep. Ilara didn't try to comfort me. She simply painted, her brush moving slow, deliberate, patient. It was as if she knew that sometimes pain has to be seen before it can leave. The storm came at night, not from the sky, but from within. I couldn't sleep. I walked the beach barefoot, the cold sand cutting into my skin, the wind howling like an echo of everything I hadn't said. Every wave that broke felt like a confession, every gust of wind a reminder that I was still running, even here. When Ilara found me, She didn't speak. She just stood beside me, her hand brushing mine. And somehow, in that touch, I realized I didn't need to fight the storm anymore. I just needed to feel it. I told her everything. Not in one breath, but in fragments. Broken pieces of stories I'd buried under years of pretending. She listened without trying to fix me, and in her silence I found something sacred. The freedom to be seen without being judged. When I finished, she said nothing for a long time. Then softly, she whispered, "You carried all that alone?" It wasn't pity. It was awe. The kind that turns pain into something human again. After that night, something shifted. The air between us felt lighter, as if the walls of the world had breathed out. Yet peace was not a straight path. It twisted back through every scar. I found myself sitting before her half-finished painting, seeing not the sea, but the reflection of all I'd run from. My own face blurred in the brushstrokes looking back at me. For the first time, I didn't turn away. I let the image hold me. Raw, imperfect, real. That evening, the rain stopped. The sea was calm again. The air washed clean. We stood outside, the scent of wet earth rising around us. "You don't have to hold everything anymore," she said. I looked at her, really looked, and saw that her calm wasn't perfect. It carried cracks, too. The difference was, she let the light through them. I took a breath that felt like my first one in years. The storm had left, but it hadn't taken me with it. It had returned me. The mornings came softer now. I woke before the light, listening to the sea breathe through the open window. The world felt slower, wider, as though time had finally loosened its grip. Ilara painted in silence, and I learned to do the same, sketching not what I saw, but what I felt. Sometimes we spoke, but mostly we didn't have. There was something holy in the quiet, the kind of peace that didn't demand, only invited. I realized then, stillness was never the absence of movement. It was the presence of meaning. One afternoon, she taught me how to listen to the ocean without hearing it. "Close your eyes," she said, "and notice what stays still while everything moves." I did. Beneath the crash of waves and the wind's breath, I heard something smaller, the quiet inside myself, alive and waiting. When I opened my eyes, she was watching me, smiling softly, as if to say, "You found it." Peace wasn't outside me anymore. It was here, patient, breathing in time with my own. We began sharing meals on the porch, laughter returning like small waves brushing the shore. There was joy now. Not loud, not forced, but real. I caught myself smiling without realizing it. The silence between us no longer felt like distance. It felt like belonging. She'd look up sometimes, eyes full of something wordless, and I understood. This peace we found wasn't about perfection. It was about presence. The courage to stay, even when nothing needed to be said. Sometimes she would walk to the water's edge at dusk, and I would follow. Not out of need, but because the silence between us had become home. We stood there for hours, letting the world move around us. The sea, the wind, the soft cry of birds. All of it carried the same truth. Nothing had to be held so tightly anymore. The calm wasn't fragile. It was alive. And for the first time, I felt I belonged not to a place, but to the stillness itself. That night, the stars came out brighter than I'd ever seen. We lay on the grass outside the cottage, the air cool, the world asleep. Ilara pointed to a constellation and said, "Even the stars need space between them to shine." I turned to her and smiled. Maybe that's what we were learning, that love isn't closeness, it's permission. The silence between us wasn't empty anymore. It was full of breath, of light, of everything we didn't have to chase. It began with a letter I found at the bottom of my bag, one I'd written years ago and never sent. The handwriting felt like someone else. The words were heavy, sharp, desperate to be heard. Reading them now, I didn't cry. I just breathed. The version of me who wrote it had needed saving, but not from the world, from themselves. Alara watched me silently as I folded the paper again. "You don't have to carry their pain anymore," she said. "You already lived it." And in her eyes, I saw permission to finally set it down. That night, I burned the letter, not out of anger, but to return it to the air. The paper curled slowly, edges glowing like sunrise. I whispered nothing dramatic, just a thank you to the pain that taught me how to see. Alara stood beside me, her hand brushing mine. The flames flickered, small and bright, and for the first time, I felt warmth without fear. The fire didn't destroy what I was. It revealed what I'd become. In the days that followed, something in me felt weightless. The sea no longer mirrored my turmoil. It simply existed, vast and forgiving. I found myself painting for the first time, not what I saw, but what I felt. The stillness, the ache, the gratitude. Alara watched from the porch, smiling softly. "You found your calm," she said. But I shook my head. "No," I answered. "It found me. When I stopped trying to deserve it." One morning, she asked if I'd ever go back. To the city, to the noise, to the people I left behind. I thought about it for a long while before answering. "Maybe," I said, "but not to escape this time." She nodded, her expression peaceful, eyes glowing with pride. We both knew peace doesn't mean still forever. It means carrying stillness wherever you go. I didn't belong to the silence anymore. The silence belonged to me. The tide came higher that evening, and the wind carried the scent of distant rain. We watched the waves swallow the footprints we'd left along the sand. "Everything returns," Alara whispered, "even peace." I closed my eyes, letting the breeze wash across my face. For once, I didn't need to hold on to anything, not even her. Because what she'd given me wasn't hers to take back. It was mine at last, the calm that had always been waiting to be found within me. The world had grown unhurried, like breath after tears. I woke each day not needing to chase the light, but to meet it. The sea still sang outside the window, same as it always had, only now I finally heard it. There was no grand revelation, no sudden clarity. Just a quiet knowing. I was here. I was enough. Alara painted in the corner of the room, humming softly, and in the spaces between her hums, I found the kind of silence that heals, not by forgetting, but by forgiving. We walked through the town one last time, cobblestones shining after the morning rain. Every face we passed smiled, though we said nothing. The quiet between us no longer asked for meaning. It simply was. I realized I didn't need to stay to keep the calm. It had already settled inside me, gentle and permanent. When we reached the pier, Lara turned to me and said, "The sea doesn't keep what it loves. It lets it return." I nodded. I understood now. At the edge of the pier, I watched the sea shimmer under the sun. I thought about the miles I'd run, the hearts I'd left, the fears I'd carried like stones. None of it felt heavy anymore. Alara stood beside me, the wind curling through her hair. And for a moment, I saw her not as someone who gave me peace, but as someone who showed me how to find it myself. I turned to thank her, but she only smiled, as if she already knew. When I finally left, the sky was clear, and the air smelled of salt and sun. Alara walked me to the road. There were no goodbyes, no promises, only a glance that said everything words couldn't. "You will carry it now," she said. I smiled, because I already was. As the car moved forward, the sea disappeared behind the cliffs. But the sound of it stayed, not in my ears, but in my chest, steady as my own heartbeat. Now, when I wake, the silence greets me like an old friend. The sea lives inside my breathing, the calm beneath my skin. I still think of her sometimes, not with longing, but with gratitude. She didn't rescue me. She didn't rescue me. She reminded me of what had been waiting all along. The stillness, the softness, the strength to simply be. I no longer run from my emotions. I walk beside them, and in every quiet moment, I meet the calm that was never gone, only waiting for me to stop and listen.